We welcome all of you back for the sessions. So let's move forward, and we have Mr. Dean Hoff, who's the Director at Consulate General of the Republic of South Africa. So a very warm welcome to Mr. Dean. He will be addressing to business potential in South Africa. So over to you, Mr. Dean.
I'd like to welcome everyone to the webinar and thank Crescendo for organizing this worthwhile endeavor. My name is Dean Hoff. I represent the South African government in India in terms of trade and investment. One second, sorry. In my introduction, I'd first like to begin by providing an overview of South Africa. We were anticipating a GDP of $400 billion for the year 2020. Obviously, this has been downgraded now with the effects of COVID. In 2019, our GDP was $385 billion. Growth, which was projected to be a positive 1.5%, is now projected to be approximately a negative 5%. Our consumer inflation on average is below 5%, and our interest rates are also looking at 50-year lows currently of around 3.75%. Our exchange rate has weakened against the US dollar. We're currently sitting at a rate of 17 Rand 20 to one US dollar, or to put it in domestic terms, one South African Rand is equal to 4.4 Indian rupees. Key exports would be mineral products, automotive and manufactured goods, with key export destinations being China, the US, the EU, Germany, the UK, India and Japan. And our top import destinations would be China, Germany, the US, India and Saudi Arabia for crude petroleum. In terms of investment, we have over 180 of the top Fortune 500 companies invested in South Africa. This basically just provides a quick snapshot of some of the companies that you may be aware of, the likes of BMW, Ford, Honda, Nissan, Hyundai in automotives, large oil multinationals like Shell, Chevron, Total in oil and gas, many invested in fast-moving consumer goods like Procter & Gamble, Bosch, Hitachi, Siemens. And in terms of affordability, you'll find that South Africa produces 200,000 university graduates per year. We have 700,000 students in vocational and technical schools. And in terms of cost of labor relating to doing business, you'll find that the cost of labor is approximately 14% of your general business costs in South Africa. We have 9 states, as you would call them in India. We refer to them as provinces, with a special economic zone spread across these different states. In each of these provinces, you'll find that there is a speciality in terms of what the offerings each special economic zone is looking at. So if, for example, we have to look at the far left-hand side of the screen in the Western Cape province, you'll see that there are 2 special economic zones present there. The one is the Atlantis SEZ, and that one focuses specifically on green tech. And we have a second one there called Saldanha Bay IDZ, which is looking at the oil and gas sector. You may be aware that Total have just recently announced a major discovery off the coast of South Africa, which we hope will open up the South African oil and gas play into a major international field and play for the next coming few years. This will build upon the different plays that are in the African continent, Angola, Mozambique, and we hope to establish a servicing center. So as opposed to rigs going from, let's say, the west coast of Africa to Singapore, we look at attracting that work into South Africa by setting up a dedicated special economic zone where we have the technical expertise and best practice to service those rigs. Other special economic zones that may be of interest would be in KwaZulu-Natal on the right-hand side of the map. There we're looking at light industries and advanced technologies. So this special economic zone has attracted CIPLA, which was mentioned in the Crescendo presentation. And you'll find towards the left-hand side of the presentation in the Eastern Cape, we have automotive activity quite prevalent in that province, in looking at 2 special economic zones that have been designated to help support those developments. In terms of Indian investment, I think the difference in my numbers and the numbers that Crescendo would have would be the actual source. Here we've measured the actual source directly from India, so we don't take into account any foreign direct investment from Indian companies via Mauritius or via the UK. And the figure we have is a total of $1 billion, which obviously would exclude some of the larger investments like Vedanta. An average investment size of around $30 million. And you'll see that the activities are quite broad and varied. Team projects have been investments in sales and marketing. We have 6 manufacturing facilities, business services, electricity generation, so was in the renewable sector, customer contact centers. We have 1 corporate headquarters for Tata. We also have a lot of logistics and distribution. And if you look at the right-hand side, you'll see some of the Indian companies that have invested in South Africa. I think maybe to put it into perspective, we have seen a lot of interest in the country using South Africa as a platform into the rest of the continent. Some of the advantages that this presents would be a common language, common heritage, the judicial system is based on English law, so you do have a commonality there. South Africa offers connectivity in terms of flights into the African continent. You find that a lot of South African corporations are very active in most countries on the continent, and as such, we're an ideal country to partner with in terms of doing business on the continent. We've also paid our school fees, so we've gone through perhaps trials and tribulations, and we are able to work in these countries. And I think another driver that wasn't mentioned, that should be mentioned, is the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, which is coming to effect. And it looks at creating a continental-wide market of 1.2 billion consumers with a value at its peak, probably in 2030, of around $2.5 trillion worth of GDP. So this itself presents itself as an immense opportunity for Indian companies looking to do business in Africa. And key to this free trade agreement would be a lot of Africa intertrade, logistics and infrastructure development, and cooperation in terms of best practice. Highlighting the sectors that we've mentioned, I'd like to begin with the automotive sector. So as you'll see that my presentation covers not only actual automotives in terms of cars and light vehicles. In South Africa, we've also included yellow metals for the mining sector. And if we just look at a couple of key points regarding the sector, you'll see that almost 50% of automotive production in Africa emanates from South Africa. In terms of the sector's contribution to GDP, it contributes 7% to South Africa's GDP, with actual manufacturing accounting for 4.4% and the retail trade accounting for 2.5%. We manufactured in 2018 550,000 vehicles, of which 370,000 passenger vehicles were sold in South Africa, which accounted for 44% of all activity on the African continent. To put it in perspective in dollar terms, we exported $12.9 billion worth of automotive exports. This includes components. to Europe and Germany and the US. And we produced approximately $2 billion worth of agricultural, mining, and constructive machinery. And each year, we anticipate that demand for that subsector will be about 5,600 new units. So if we look at the reasons to invest in that particular sector in South Africa, I'll start with the first one being preferential market access. There, we're not speaking yet about the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, but we're referring directly to our agreements with the US in terms of AGOA, our free trade agreement with the EU, and with Southern Africa, which itself presents a market of 1 billion consumers. We also have rising demand in South Africa for mining-related equipment. And in South Africa, we have a policy of charters for specific sectors which deal with indigenization. And this itself is a very strong draw card, where 70% of procurement in a mining activity will be based from spend in South Africa. So with at least 60% local content required. So what that means is that 60% of, for example, mining dump truck would need to be procured from South African companies. So in terms of that, establishing a presence in South Africa, your company would then be deemed to be South African. Another strong factor that helps to encourage investment in the sector is that we have over 500 tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 suppliers to the OEMs. Other key developments would be that the demand for vehicles is continuous, and specifically as Africa grows and large projects are being developed in Africa, we'll see that South Africa presents itself as an ideal partner to help and meet that demand. I would also like to mention that we do have policy certainty, where we have strategic plans up to 2035. And in terms of support for the sector, let me just skip that quickly. You'll see that these plans cover a variety of measures. So you'll find that, as I mentioned, we have the South African Auto Master Plan to 2035. We have national incentive programs where we look at production, we look at medium and commercial vehicles, we look at people carriers. So we have actually split the support programs according to the needs. We also have an innovation support program, and we also have skills development support programs, which help to train future workers for your operations, make sure that there's no skills gap within the investment environment. If I go back up, just to show you where to invest and who has invested, you'll find that, for example, around the center of the country in Pretoria, you have many well-known OEMs such as BMW, we have Tata, you have Hyundai. If we look towards the eastern part of the country, you'll find that Toyota is very active there. Further towards the west, you'll have Isuzu, Ford, VW, Mercedes, and BMW. So you'll find that the automotive sector in South Africa is concentrated in 3 key hubs. And by looking on the right of the presentation, you'll see all the components that are able to be manufactured in South Africa that go into a passenger vehicle. The next sector I'd like to highlight would be agro-processing. No, sorry, just before I skip that one, opportunities would be around engines, radiators, air conditioning, alarms, body parts, steering wheels. I think it's also important to note that in South Africa, we have 49 passenger vehicle brands and 3,760 models for consumers that we actually produce for South African consumers and the world, to show that the diversity and the range and the actual breadth of the sector that's available in South Africa. And it's worthwhile to note that in 2017, we attracted $500 million worth of investment by the 7 large OEMs. This figure actually includes investment by Beijing Automotive Company, which itself invested $650 million. and plans to use South Africa as a platform for the African continent. In terms of the next sector I'd like to highlight will be agro-processing. South Africa does also have a well-developed agro-processing sector that is internationally competitive. You'll find that there are key products that we produce, for example, grapes, apples, citrus fruits, wine, macadamia nuts, and supporting this agro-processing sector would be a very well-developed logistics and supply chain that is internationally competitive. And this sector actually accounts for 23% of South Africa's manufacturing sector, making it the largest subsector of manufacturing. And over the last 4 to 5 years, you'll find that the food and beverage sector has been one of the best performing manufacturing subsectors in South Africa. The map basically highlights the different areas where different crops are grown. You'll find that the Western Cape is probably best known because it's of its production of wine that is well known and liked around the world. The Free State would do maize, and then you'd find sugarcane in the eastern part of the country. Our opportunities were quite broad as well in the sector in terms of fruit canning and vegetable canning and food processing. Also oilseed production, which I think, having seen the newspapers in India recently, that there's large demand for that. Non-food based opportunities are quite immense as well. Commercial planting of products that will exempt for, let's say, essential oils, flax production, wool production, textile industries. And we do have support measures that are available through the Industrial Development Corporation of South Africa, the Land Bank, and my department, the Department of Trade and Industry and Competition as well. Touching on the last sector would be pharmaceuticals. South Africa's pharmaceutical sector has been growing over the last 2 years with immense growth in pharmaceutical devices as well as pharmaceuticals. We have advanced capabilities in terms of biotechnology and manufacturing. And also you'll find that South Africa is one of the only Southern African Development Corporation members that meets the WHO's manufacturing practice standards. This further positions us as a gateway into the African market. And we are anticipating that South African sales will increase by 40% in the next few years, driven by your lifestyle-related diseases such as obesity, diabetes, and antiretroviral drugs. Opportunities here, again, would be around manufacturing and the supply of drugs for diseases such as HIV, malaria, tuberculosis, the development and manufacturing of active pharmaceutical ingredients. So we're looking at domestic API production in South Africa, as I think is quite topical now with the COVID crisis. We're also looking at the supply of medical telemedicine applications, so helping to reach medical services in the rural areas, supply of niche pharmaceutical products, and looking forward to development and supply of innovative medical technology. In terms of what support is provided, we have financial support, we have regulatory support, we have incentives for R&D, and we also have industrial clusters around the country, which you can see quite clearly on the map on the right-hand side, where we're looking at the Western Cape, Eastern Cape, Gauteng, and KwaZulu-Natal. In terms of overall services that we provide and use to support investment in the country, we have launched an Invest SA initiative where Invest SA acts as your partner and one-stop shop to navigate an investment in South Africa. Key services would be the facilitation of the entire investment value chain, providing specialist advisory services to investment, acting as a facilitation window for the clearance of licensing and permits, also facilitation of information and helping with roadshows, matching investors to incentive schemes. We also provide intergovernmental coordination. So you'll find that for example, Company Registration and Companies and Intellectual Property Commission is a body and agency of the Department of Trade and Industry. We help with business permits. We help with the registration of different licenses and requirements for business, such as unemployment insurance, facilitation of mining permits, municipal facilitation, and investment promotion and international investment roadshows. So I think with that brief overview, my contact details are provided. I'm based in Mumbai. We're happy to travel around the country to engage, to help develop a business plan with potential investors. South Africa, we feel, offers immense opportunity, and we remain available to speak at your convenience. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dean, for sharing information regarding the business potential in South Africa for different sectors, which could be of great importance for all the participants in this exhibition. So we are having more further sessions coming up, so stay tuned.